Hello and welcome to episode 12 of Touchline Talk with Odds Changer, where we will be discussing all the latest news and gossip from the Premier League, EFL and the rest of the world. As usual, I'm joined by football broadcaster, writer and man on the know, Dean Jones, to dissect all the latest transfer rumours and all the whispers out there on the grapevine. Hi, Dean. We're into the final week of the transfer window now, and this is normally when deals start to get going, really, and the whispers start to grow louder and louder. So we're expecting some business this week, even though it has been a quiet window up to now.
Yeah, finally, I think we are going to start to see it get a bit busy now. Definitely, I've noticed just through making phone calls and stuff since the back end of last week, there seems to be a bit more movement and a bit more promise in terms of clubs actually going ahead with deals now. It's no surprise, is it? You know, January is always a bit like this, and on the back of a pandemic as well, it's even more so. So, yeah, let's see what can get done. Let's see what is on the horizon.
Yes, let's hope there's some big deals to be happening. It seems strikers are what most clubs are looking right now. We've got the likes of West Brom looking a striker, West Ham, Fulham. I'm sure there's plenty of other teams across the country who'd like a striker to try and score the goals to solve their problems before the window closes next Monday. One of those strikers who could be on the move before the deadline is Christian Benteke at Crystal Palace. Obviously, they've brought in a new striker in Jean-Philippe Mateta from Mainz to add the competition to places at Selhurst Park. Benteke, he's had a bit of a difficult time probably in the last 18 months at Palace, just hasn't really reproduced the form that he showed at Aston Villa all those years ago, and he's coming now to the end of his contract at Selhurst Park as well. So I think being a big earner, Palace would be willing to let him leave and get him off the books, really. And Big Sam Allardyce, who had him at Crystal Palace when he was manager there, has come out and confirmed his interest in Benteke, saying he would like to have him if he's available. So this one, I think, has got a real possibility this could happen. So do you think Benteke would be a good signing for West Brom, Dean?
Potentially, yeah. But I think the big problem with Christian Benteke will be the amount of money he's currently earning at Crystal Palace. I think that, you know, Allardyce, of course, is going to confirm that he'd like a striker like Christian Benteke, because he's absolutely the type of man he needs in that attack right now with the style of football he wants to play to keep them in the Premier League. But from what I've told, it's a huge obstacle is getting around how much Benteke currently earns. But Crystal Palace do need to offload him or Batshuayi, or they've obviously brought in a new forward now, and so they do need to try and figure out a way of changing their front line and getting somebody out. But West Brom are looking at so many different options right now, and I know that Ahmed Musa is starting to train with them from today. Obviously, formerly with Leicester, he's been in Saudi Arabia for a couple of years. He's now a free agent. So Allardyce is having a look at him to see if he could be a potential nice one to bring in for the last few months of the season. And he's looking at like 5 or 6 other people as well. You know, this is just typical Sam Allardyce and typical team in trouble at the bottom of the Premier League stuff. We see it every single year from someone, and it makes sense because goal scorers are always hard to find anyway. But halfway through a season, the options just aren't there. You're going to have a very selected choice. So, look, maybe if West Brom can find an agreement in terms of wages, then Benteke will absolutely fit the bill. But it's something they're going to have to get over as they start discussions on that today.
Yeah, finance is pretty tight down at the Hawthorns, as we all know. Big Sam's been restricted to loan signings and even big wage structure down at West Brom as well. So with Benteke on over 100 grand a week, it's going to have to come to a compromise between the two clubs to try and get this deal done. Another striker linked with Big Sam, not surprisingly, is Andy Carroll, who had him at Newcastle as well. It's a bit of a strange link, this, Dean, for me. He's back in the Newcastle team right now, Andy Carroll, although he's not scoring and firing. I can't really see how Newcastle can afford to let him go without bringing in a replacement at least. So do you think there's any legs in this one?
I haven't heard that there is, to be honest. No, I did send out a couple of texts just to see if anybody that I thought might know does know, and no, nothing positive came back from it. So I don't think that this seems to be on the cards right now. Again, you know, like Benteke, you know, Carroll was somebody that would fit into a Sam Allardyce plan of trying to stay in the Premier League. But, you know, Newcastle really, really need him right now. And, you know, their manager's situation is uncertain right now as well. And it might be that Steve Bruce is gone soon and they bring in a new manager who might really want Andy Carroll. So I don't think that that's one, but it's a transfer window and approaching deadline day. I'm not going to rule it out totally.
Yeah, well, we all know Andy Carroll was one of the big stars of a January transfer window a few years ago when he left
Yeah.
Newcastle for Liverpool in that big money deal. But I'd be surprised if this one was to happen. I just can't see Carroll leaving his hometown club to go to a fellow struggler in West Brom as well. But probably the link comes with Andy Carroll and Sam Allardyce to share the same agent as well. So there's a long time connection between the pair there. But I'd be surprised if Carroll does end up at the Hawthorns come next Monday. Another striker who was linked with West Brom, Josh King of Bournemouth. Again, he's out of contract this summer. Been lots of rumours about him. Burnley seem to be the latest team strongly linked with him. Dean, from what I'm hearing, this one has a real chance. Maybe Burnley now with fresh investment from the new owners are now looking seriously into the signing of Josh King, particularly because of his contract situation. They think they can get him quite cheap. Just remember, last January, Bournemouth turned down £20 million from Manchester United for Josh King. So his star has fallen since then dramatically. I think you could probably get him now for between 6 to 8 million with Bournemouth just keen to sell now rather than let him leave on a free transfer in the summer. But the Burnley one, do you think he'd be a good fit for Burnley?
Yeah, I do. I think he would be a good fit for Burnley, totally. I think he's proven that he's a really, really nice player to have in your squad. And I'm surprised that nobody snapped him up as soon as Bournemouth were relegated, to be honest with you. Definitely, Josh King's been touted around to pretty much every Premier League club over the last few months. There was Everton, West Ham, even Newcastle were among those that seemed to be vaguely interested in it, particularly West Ham, who still are quite interested. I don't think that they're going to go and do it, but they're still in there. I think that, there are a couple of things to consider here. One is the fact that he's available for free at the end of the season. Two is that he, from what I've heard, wants a lot of money to make this move. And I've heard he wants over £100,000 a week. And if that's true, then I do see it as being a problem for Burnley to get that deal done, because you look at their squad right now and you think, right, Ben Mee, Chris Wood, Jay Rodriguez, Tarkowski, they're all on about half that amount. And that shows you the kind of pay structure that Burnley have been working with. Yeah, I know they've got new investment now, but from what we've heard, it doesn't seem like these investors they come in and rip up the rule book and start throwing money around all over the place. So if he actually does want upwards of £100,000 a week, I think that'll be a problem. But if they can come to some sort of agreement that they're probably going to have to make him the highest earner in the squad if he does come, but it might be worth it.
Yeah, like you said, his wage demands could maybe put an end to this move. And again, it could cause problems if he was to move. Then if he goes in on the highest earner, there's going to be players at Burnley thinking, why is he on the most money? I want similar. So, yeah, it's an interesting dilemma for Sean Dyche to weigh up as well. But I've heard that Bournemouth are doing their due diligence, possibly on replacements for Josh King. And Mate Vidra has been mentioned as a possible sweetener in this deal, maybe going in a swap move with Josh King. So Bournemouth then have a replacement for him as well. Vidra, I think, would be a good signing for somebody like Bournemouth. He's probably a proven championship player in the past. He does score goals at that level, struggles probably in the Premier League. But do you think this one could be one that Bournemouth would be interested in doing?
Yeah, and I think it's something that we're going to see quite a lot over the next week is clubs trying to throw a player into a deal and bringing the money involved down. Because it is a really tricky time for clubs, and especially, any short-term fix. So in the instance of Bournemouth, you're losing one of your main men. You need somebody quickly to come in, and you want somebody that's proven and could help you immediately carry on and get it back into the Premier League, So I think a swap deal would definitely appeal to them. Whether that's the exact type of forward they want, I don't know. But yeah, he would be a nice player to have in there, and I think it's certainly one to look out for.
Yeah, one factor in Burnley's favour in this potential move is that Josh King still has a house up in the northwest from his time at Manchester United and Blackburn, so wouldn't have any big thing for relocating for the Norwegian striker if he was to go to Burnley. But again, I think from Josh King's side, I've heard he's quite relaxed on the whole situation. He knows in 6 months' time he's a free agent. He'll have his choice of clubs then. He can maybe cash in with a big signing on fee as well. So I'm sure there'll be lots of interest in Josh King in this final week of the window, but it's all going to come down to who can offer him the best deal to see if Josh King does end up leaving Bournemouth in the end.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just seems to be a recurrent theme, Dean, like you mentioned, possible swap deals and everything, but players who are being linked with moves are the ones who are coming to the end of their contracts in the summer. Obviously, clubs can get them a lot cheaper now with their contracts expiring. Just 6 months left in it. Another player in that boat is Demarai Gray at Leicester, coming to the end of his contract at the King Power Stadium. He's not really had a look in this season under Brendan Rodgers. I think he's only made 3 appearances for the Foxes. Such a promising young player when he arrived at Leicester City from Birmingham. It just hasn't really happened for him. Latest rumours suggest that Crystal Palace are the favourites for him. I think they're 1-2 with the bookies to land Demarai Gray before the deadline closes. Again, Demarai Gray and Palace, could you see this one potentially happening?
It's definitely one that they are looking into right now, and they're trying to see, what kind of terms he wants and all the rest of it. I think the fact that he is available so cheap, I think under 2 million from what I understand, is obviously really enticing and something that they're certainly looking at. I mean, when you consider Palace potentially having Wilfried Zaha, Eze and Demarai Gray in the same side, that's not the kind of thing that Roy Hodgson's normally looking to do, is it? He doesn't like to have many players with flair and pace and creativity on the pitch at one time. But we've seen that Roy Hodgson has changed his thinking a bit this season, and he hasn't been quite as defensive-minded as he has been at other clubs and at other times with Palace. He's been a little bit looser and hasn't always worked out for him. But I do think that Palace have shown that they are in the market a bit more for players like Demarai Gray. And I think that under the right guidance, he could very, very quickly become a really important and exciting player again. It's been really tricky for him, and he has spent a lot of time with the under-23s this season. So one thing you have to factor in is how long is it going to take him to get up to speed of the Premier League and make the kind of impact you want in the second half of the season. But he's been offered around quite a bit over the past couple of months because of his contract situation. Southampton and Everton, 2 of those. Tottenham, actually, interestingly, have also been involved in that, being sounded out and potentially interested. I don't think they're going to go for it, but certainly it's been put on their radar. And then Bayer Leverkusen is one that seems genuine. It does seem like they are genuinely interested. I'm waiting to see whether they are interested right now or whether, like Marseille, they prefer the option of trying to sign him in the summer on a free.
Yeah, interest from abroad, like you mentioned there, Dean, with Bayer Leverkusen, Marseille. I think that maybe stems from Demarai Gray has a foreign agent working for him these days who will obviously be well connected abroad. But yeah, he'd be the type of player who maybe would suit going abroad. I think with his style of football as well, he might be a good fit for certain clubs like Leverkusen or Marseille. But for a player like Demarai Gray to be available so cheap, a few years ago you wouldn't have thought he'd be available at that type of money. We all expected him to have a big future at Leicester City as well. So big few months ahead for Demarai Gray. Does he leave now and find a new club, or does he wait until the summer like a lot of these other players and run down his contract and then see what best offers come his way? Then another player who's been strongly linked with a move this window is Jesse Lingard of Manchester United. Been out of favour under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer this season. Wasn't in the squad to play Liverpool in the FA Cup over the weekend. And it seems Lingard has asked Manchester United if he can move on in search of regular first-team football. The surprising name in this one for me, Dean, is West Ham are the new favourites to land Jesse Lingard. 11-10 West Ham, Sheffield United 5-1. Marseille 20-1. This West Ham one just doesn't add up to me, although he has played under David Moyes before when Moyes was in charge at Old Trafford. I just can't see a place for him in this West Ham team right now.
No, I understand what you're saying. I mean, he has been on West Ham's radar for the past year. I know that they have definitely been watching his situation and been aware of the fact that he's not entirely happy with how he's fitted in under Solskjaer, and it was becoming less and less regular part of the side. So he's definitely been on their radar. I know that David Moyes does really like him. But for me, the interesting factor will be, well, how are they planning to get this deal done? At the moment, West Ham have filled their quota of domestic loans. So they can't take him as it stands right now on a loan deal. So it has to be a permanent, or they turn one of their current loan deals into a permanent. So that would be either Ben Rama or Craig Dawson. Now, Craig Dawson is potentially, they could turn that into a permanent. Like they're happy with how he's done. And I think they are looking at that situation anyway. So maybe that's what they're looking at here. I think it's really important, I understand, for Lingard that he goes and joins a manager that has complete faith in him and that he can trust, and vice versa. Like, he wants to go in somewhere where he's got a really good understanding with whoever it is he's going to be working with, and that they're just completely open with where they stand. He has to, if he's moving clubs right now, he has to be getting games every single week. And I think with David Moyes, that would be there on the table. Moyes would be very honest with him about where he stands. Sheffield United, he did definitely have very serious discussions with. I don't think that he's particularly impressed with the idea of being relegated. I don't think that's something that they particularly wants on his CV. I'm not sure he's the type of player that you would really want in a relegation battle, but Chris Wilder does. Chris Wilder, has really tried to sell the club to him in the vision. I'm not sure that that's quite going to pay off, but let's see what happens. I mean, I know there are other clubs in there as well, and he's interested in the option of going to abroad if a good door opens for him. So I don't know. It's open there for him, and surely he will move.
Yeah, he's got to move, hasn't he, Jesse Lingard? I think Solskjaer is willing to let him move on as well, despite having reservations of weakening his squad coming up to a busy second half of the season as well. But yeah, like you, Dean, Sheffield United have been very keen on him, but I'd be very surprised if he was to make the move to Bramall Lane. West Brom also have thrown their hat into the ring for Jesse Lingard, but probably similar to the Sheffield United situation. I don't think Jesse Lingard wants to be going into a team in a relegation battle right now. So maybe West Ham could be the fit, or possibly a move abroad, where I have heard talk of maybe Marseille being in for the midfielder. And we all know that Marseille are set to lose Morgan Sanson to Aston Villa, so they will need midfield reinforcements. So they might have a bit of money in their pockets from Sanson's sale to Villa to maybe make a move for Jesse Lingard. So we'll have to keep a close eye on that one over the next few days to see if that interest does materialise in Jesse Lingard as well. It wouldn't be a podcast without bringing up this man in it as normal. Dele Alli just seems to be the one that everybody's been talking about this whole transfer window. Won't he go to PSG, or will he remain at Spurs? Jose Mourinho is not giving too much away on this one, Dean. He's saying he's carrying a slight injury, so he might not be playing in the FA Cup against Wickham. The interesting news that I found from this possible move was it's not Mauricio Pochettino pushing for it, it's Leonardo, the PSG sporting director. He's the driving force behind this move. He really wants to get it done, and the last I heard, this deal was 50-50. What's your latest take on this?
Yeah, I do think that's interesting about Leonardo, and I mean it makes sense because Dele Alli had been linked to PSG before Pochettino had arrived at the club, and enough weeks in advance that it was before Pochettino knew he was definitely coming in at PSG. So it's interesting, but then you think, well, in the back of Leonardo's mind, he would have known that if Tuchel was going, then it was Pochettino they were going for, and to have Dele and Pochettino at the same time is obviously ideal. Dele is seen as fitting perfectly into the PSG plan. Pochettino wants another forward who can kind of set the tone of their game and really press and support the attackers, particularly the central striker, in the way that he wants them to do and play further up the pitch. So, yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that PSG absolutely do want this deal done. I was told right at the beginning of January, though, like, this is a deal that could easily go down to deadline day because there are so many complications with it, and none less than the fact that Daniel Levy doesn't really want him to leave, to be honest, because he really likes Dele Alli and thinks he's worth £100 million. So Daniel Levy needs to be absolutely convinced that Dele Alli, one, isn't going to be playing at Tottenham for the rest of the season, and two, that this is the best place for him. I think he's got a pretty good relationship with Dele from what I understand on a personal level, and that he totally understands his point of view. But I know that from the other side, Dele Alli is getting a bit frustrated. I know somebody that spoke to him the other day and asked him, are you moving or not? And he said, I honestly don't know. I don't know. He said, I just want to be playing football. I want to stay at Tottenham. But I'm not getting a game, so I'm ready for whatever comes my way, and just need to be playing again, which is exactly the kind of mindset you would want him to have. You don't want him to be sat on the bench at Tottenham, and the problem is at Tottenham he's just going to lose value, lose more form, lose more confidence if he's not playing for the rest of the season. So I do think Dele will leave Tottenham this month, in the next week, and I think if he does leave, surely it's PSG.
Yeah, doesn't seem to be too many other options out there for Dele. There was talk of Everton earlier in the window, but I don't think that's a possibility that Spurs would let him go to a Premier League club as well. So, yeah, like we've said, Dean, all along, this one's going to go right down to the wire. Dele Alli wants the move, but Spurs are playing that old game of making him wait. They don't want to weaken their squad right now. So I think this one will be probably one of the main storylines on transfer deadline day next Monday. Big news that broke from the weekend, Dean, was Rafa Benitez leaving Chinese Super League side Dalian Professional to fuel rumours of a possible return to management in the UK. Obviously, it had Newcastle fans pining for his potential return. They would love Rafa back at St James's Park right now, with all the growing unrest at the club, with Mike Ashley and Steve Bruce, with protests going on after Villa's game on Saturday, with Newcastle suffering another defeat. Steve Bruce seems to be under all sorts of pressure there, but it seems that he's going to be given some time to turn things around there, with potentially Graham Jones coming in to join his coaching team later this week as well. So seems a potential move to Newcastle is not on the cards for Rafa, and I'm not too sure who would be interested in that, especially with Mike Ashley still in control at Newcastle as well. But Celtic strongly linked with Rafa Benitez as well. 1-6 with the bookies for Rafa Benitez to replace the under fire Neil Lennon. I don't know if you saw the fake documents that were going around on social media as well, of Celtic signing a deal with Rafa Benitez with his lawyers as well. I just think that's the normal Glasgow thing. When anything comes involved between Celtic and Rangers, the rumour mill goes crazy. But I can't see this one happening for the life of me, of Rafa Benitez going up to Celtic. What's your take on Rafa, and where do you think he will end up next?
Well, I'm told a return to Newcastle is very unlikely, even if Steve Bruce leaves tomorrow. Like, I'm told that the chances of him going back to Newcastle are very, very slim. But he does want to find a new club as quick as possible, and he wants a top club who have plenty of ambition. Now, let's bear in mind that I think he was earning £12 million net in his deal at China.
Nice.
So I'm not sure that he's going to find any club that's going to match that kind of money. So let's hope that when he says ambition, he does means club ambition and not ambition for his bank account. But look, he's been back in England since like November. And I think that ideally he wants to find a club here. The problem is that you look at who's around right now, jobs that might come up. It's Newcastle, it's Chelsea. He's not getting either of those clubs. You say Celtic. Well, Celtic seem to have a new hot favourite every single time we record this show. So I'm not going to read too much into that right now. Look, the two good chance ones of happening are Roma and Napoli. They both are on his radar, and he's been made aware that there could be possibilities at both of those clubs. But it's probably going to be later in the season, if not the end of the season, because they're going to see how those situations pan out for those two clubs. In terms of stature, I think that those are two clubs and about the right market, about the right level. But it depends whether Rafa sees himself managing in Serie A. So I'm sure new doors will open for him, but the Newcastle one, can't see it. The Celtic one, I really can't see it either.
But yeah, that's us for another week on Touchline Talk. We'll be back next week for the end of the transfer window and any other big news on the managerial merry-go-round.